we are not alone.
These are supposed to be some of the most verified images of giants.
People who do meditation for 60 days will lengthen their telomeres.
Soon we'll get results, and we'll let you know right here on Beyond Belief. Things seem to be changing in the field of ufology.
It's going to be a bumpy ride.
That's priceless.
Isn't that amazing?
Tesla wanted free energy, and look what happened to him.
Plenty of evidence to show that they're real. The real question is how and why.
There were Egyptian hieroglyphs out in the outback of Australia.
In Australia. What are the possibilities? Mars was inhabited, and these were built. We almost can't duplicate today. These are amazing topics. What if there was something like at Area 51 deep underwater?
They were killed by some animal.
Believe me, we're just getting started. I'm George Noory, and we here at Gaia are committed to revealing the truth. And welcome back to Coast. George Noory with you. Marshall Barnes back with us, research and development engineer in advanced concept science and technology. Marshall has a long history in the entertainment, technology, production, and video industry that is only matched by his incredible achievements in science and innovation, which includes breakthroughs in optical invisibility research, advanced propulsion, and consciousness. He perhaps is best known for his world-class research into time travel science and technology, being the first person ever to have a double-blind, peer-reviewed paper published on the quantum basis for time travel. A couple of his books include Paradox Lost and Black Holes and Time Tunnels. Marshall, welcome back. And you talk about time travel 59 years ago thinking of the Beatles. That's amazing, isn't it?
I was 4 years old. I was in front of the TV set. I was very excited. So
I remember that.
I saw that. Yeah.
Me too. Everybody did. 73 million people watched that night.
Right. Exactly.
How you been?
I've been too busy for comfort. In fact, I'm reminded of that thing that Elon Musk said. Like, you don't want to be in this position. It's too rough. You know, he says it's bad for your heart, it's bad for your brain. He's exactly right. I've been in exactly that same kind of position where so much was going on and I had to deal with that. It's a nightmare. I wouldn't wish it on anyone, regardless of how exciting some of the outcome has been.
My gosh, but are you okay?
Yeah, I'm just really, really fried. I mean, I've been getting an average of about 6 hours of sleep at night, but not consecutively. You know, it's like it's been really broken up. I'm not really complaining that much, but I'm complaining that much. So, but I'm all right.
Well, you were last on with me a little over a year ago. What has moved on since then?
Oh, we've made so much progress since then. Something funny. One of the things that we did first was we were able to link Tom Bearden to some of this research, and also Bearden was interested and a promoter of the idea of the quantum basis for parallel universes, and there was some linkage there with time travel, and so Bearden and I spent one evening. We were together for like about 8 hours at a USPA convention. And a lot of people said, because I wanted to talk to him, because I'd seen him before. And a lot of people said, well, he'll probably only give you a few minutes. And we were talking for 8 hours.
Wow.
And after that, I didn't see him again. He lived for quite a while, because this was back like late 90s. And then he died, a couple of years ago, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but the thing about it was he really unloaded a lot of information on me, which I was able to, and I had a couple of his books like Fer-de-Lance and that type of thing. And so Bearden, I was able to go back and look at some of his research, and the problem with Bearden is that he has an attack on certain problems were so original, and he would reinterpret them, and some people just thought he was off, but a lot of times he was actually on. And so we were able to link some of his work with what we found out to be answers for certain approaches to time travel. And then more recently, we're at the end now. I mean, we found out that there is one last thing that needs to be done to make any kind of time travel event take place, and that has to do with the idea of tuning. I know a lot of people are really into the idea of frequency and stuff and whatnot, but the key thing is what you do with that, how you tune it, how you tune whatever it is that you're actually working on trying to make take place. Sometimes it doesn't have anything to do with frequency at all, but it does have to do with how you manipulate whatever it is that you're doing, whether that has to do with resonance or whatever. But once you do that, that's it. And it's going to be different for everything that you might be trying to do, because there's different ways of doing it. And that's another difficulty in trying to figure out how to make time travel work. But once you get it figured out according to your approach, we're expecting big things to happen. And the next event would be a time travel event, what we would call a science fiction level event.
That's huge.
So we're there now, working on trying to make those things happen, and that's it.
So you're knocking on the time travel door, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Leaning against it, beating it.
All we got to do is open that door and see what happens. And when we talk about time travel, Marshall, are we talking about going into the future, going into the past, what?
Okay, first of all, I'm talking about specifically going to the past, because I don't know anyone who wants to go to the future. I mean, imagine it's 2019, and time travel's been figured out. Like, great, I'm going to go to the next year, 2020, see what's going on. And you arrive, and what happens?
What a mess.
COVID
and all that other stuff.
Right. No one with any kind of brains wants to go to the future, because we have no idea what to expect, and it could be the last thing that you do. So instead, you go, wow, let's see, what happened in the past? That could be a really good time to hang out in and, have some fun, maybe retire. You do that because you know what's going to happen. You're not going to, there's not going to be an asteroid, and there's not going to be a world war.
Right. You know what's happened already.
What?
By going into the past,
yeah.
you already know.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly.
I'd like to go back and see Jesus on the Mount preaching.
Well,
I mean, to me, I would just think that would be fascinating.
Well, here's the deal. You're not going to be able to understand what he's saying. Number two, you're going to need a security detail, because what's going to happen is if anyone tries to talk to you, you can't talk back to them because you can't talk the language.
Right.
There's a guy named, I'm trying to remember his name, is Michael, I can't remember his last name. He's the inventor of this machine called the Genesis machine, which was kind of a body, yoga. It wasn't a yoga thing, but it was for your body and your mental health and relaxation and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, Michael and I used to hang out together, and we used to theorize what we would do if we had a time travel agency that was with a travel agency, right? And we go, well, first thing we had to do is take well-heeled, aging hippies back to Woodstock, and so they can have that experience. But the other thing, the problematic thing that we didn't really want to deal with, was because it was going to be difficult. It's like taking people to see the things from the Bible, particularly Jesus, that whole bit. Because, I said, what's going to happen? They're going to go see the thing before the crucifixion, and somebody's going to run out and try to be the person that helps Christ carry the cross.
Yeah,
and that's going to tick off the Roman guys. And the next thing you know, the security details have to whip out the MP5s, and we got all kinds of problems.
No, you're right. I mean, I would be one of those to try to pull them down off the cross. They'd come down after me, wouldn't they?
It would be a mess. So that was one of the things we all decided that, that's going to be a problem. We'd have to do psychological profiles on people that would go, so that we would know that we wouldn't have someone prone to do exactly that. All that kind of stuff.
What would happen, Marshall, if you did go into the future, and let's say you went to the year 4000, and all of a sudden there's nothing here. It's gone. The planet's gone barren, basically. Whoa.
That's why you don't go to the future.
Can you get back?
Exactly right. Huh?
Could you
get back?
You could get
back. Depends on how you went. It depends on how you went, what methods you use. There's two methods as far as time travel goes. You're going to have a vehicle method or a station method.
What's the easier of the two?
The easier overall is the vehicle method because you have some independence in terms of how you're traveling, and like for example, as long as you can maintain the vehicle in terms of keeping it safe while you're gone, hiding it and whatever, then you're good. But see, if something happens to that vehicle, you're stuck there unless you can fix it. But if you use a station method, which is basically like Stargate or something like that, the time tunnel, those kind of things, then you're good because you're going to assume that everything back at the base is going to be okay, back at the headquarters, so to speak. And so if something goes wrong, you're going to be hoping they can open up that connection again to where you are.
Would it be like Back to the Future in the DeLorean, where you hop in it and
that's the vehicle method is the DeLorean idea.
Marshall, what do you think would come first, the machinery time travel machine or the sound resonance?
Sound resonance. Well, first of all,
tuning.
Well, the technology is right along with it. I mean, we're working on things now. In fact, we've done experiments with devices now, so there's not really a kind of what's going to come first. And as far as sound resonance goes, I'm not quite sure what you're referring to.
Well, when you were talking about tuning and things like that.
Oh, no, okay. Tuning, see, that's the problem. Tuning does not have to do specifically with a sound. Tuning is how you attenuate whatever is the effect that you're using to try to cause something to take place. It's not a sound thing at all.
It's not like trumpets and things like that.
No, absolutely not, no.
Okay.
No, and also another thing I want to clear up real quick is when it comes to time travel, nothing is literally traveling through time like you see at the beginning of Doctor Who and the TARDIS is going through some kind of a tunnel. That's not what happens. What happens is what you're trying to do is you're trying to cause a decoherence split between where your target is, whatever you're trying to send, and at the next moment where they are in terms of the quantum mechanics is concerned, because you want to put them in a new quantum mechanical parallel universe, a copy of the past. It's not literally the past, and that's the reason why we can make it work, because we don't have to deal with any of the issues that a lot of people point out about, like, for example, entropy and the second law of thermodynamics and all that kind of stuff that would be violated through the normal way that time travel is described or thought of. But if you're dealing with, like, a quantum copy of that particular time period in the next moment in the area that you're targeting, that's a whole other ball of wax.
Mm-hmm.
That's totally allowable, and that's why what we're doing is so important and so viable, because we're not making any of these other mistakes.
And when you travel into the past or the present, or the future rather, and are we there physically, or we're going to be there just like a dream state?
No, this is physical, because here's the main purpose for this research is to get out of here before it all goes to where in the handbasket.
Yeah.
Okay. We are not positive about the future. And as a matter of fact, Elon Musk kind of feels the same way. He thinks there's a lot of threats, and his approach to what to do about those is radically different from mine. However, we both share the same fears. Something's going to go terribly wrong. There's a number of things that could go wrong, and this is how serious things are. I published a statement for the COP27 climate crisis conference that was in Egypt a few months ago, right? And this is a real test, because I didn't know, since it's about climate, all these scientists are going to be there and whatnot, I didn't know how the reaction was going to be, right? But I know even people from NASA that were into the whole climate issue that saw it, and they didn't attack me. They didn't diss me. I didn't get any flack from anybody. And so the thing about it is, things are so bad. People are like, if time travel will work, then let's do it, because they think they're up against the wall. I mean, that's how bad things are. So we're getting a lot of people that are worried about the future. They see things that they don't like, and this is going to become something that they're interested in, because if we can make it happen, then shebang, here you go.
That's right. Are there companies secretly working on time travel without us knowing about it? I mean, you may know about it.
Well, I mean, I don't know, because then I would know about it. But the thing is that I hear a lot of flack every once in a while, but all I have to do is, if somebody says, "Oh, I'm working on time travel," I say, "Really? Tell me what time is." And then that's where the rubber hits the road.
They can't tell you.
Because they'll end up doing, so usually give me some kind of variation off of what duration is. Duration is when you make those measurements. How long does something last? The durations, even like, months, years, minutes, whatever. That's what most people think about as far as time goes. It has nothing to do with it. Because if you think about relativity theory, when Minkowski first was talking about Einstein's theories and saying, well, from here on out, time and space are inextricably connected. Well, a lot of people didn't take that serious enough. Time is connected to space, and it serves a specific purpose, and that is to allow things to take place. Space is where things happen, and time is what lets it happen. If you get rid of time, nothing happens. And time is not duration. That's why we call it duration. And here's the proof about that. In advanced physics, there's something called the asymmetry of time problem. What is it? It is a situation where we only see things moving forward, so to speak. And you break an egg, it doesn't come back together again. All right? Even though the math for reassembling or running things backward exists, but scientists never see those things happen. And so the thing about it is, if duration was the same thing as time, you could substitute duration, or use that instead of the word time. And what does that give you? It gives you the duration, the duration symmetry issue. That's what it'd be. But the duration is not asymmetrical; it's symmetrical. So that means it works both ways, front and back. If you have 5 minutes, you can take it away, or you can add it together again. It works like that. But the actual thing that we're talking about in terms of that asymmetry problem doesn't work like that. So that means that time and duration are not the same thing. And that's the thing most people don't understand, because they're not involved in advanced physics. Wow. Who would have thunk it? So that's the deal.
Tell us about your work with parallel universes. You've been dabbling with that too.
Well, that is the kind of the background story. It begins a long time ago. Fred Allen Wolf, and what happened was, long story short, I was in the entertainment industry, and we were using an advanced altered state of consciousness technique to come up with story ideas, and which was working out great. But then eventually things start happening. They start for real, like they start coming true. We would make up a character, and then we'd run to somebody who was just like that character. And I was like, wait a minute, except that they were here instead of in a parallel universe or something. And we didn't know what was going on. We thought that was totally bizarre. I ran across a book called Parallel Universes: A Search for Other Worlds by Fred Allen Wolf, and in it was a lot of the kind of things that we were talking about. And see, you got to remember, at that particular moment, I knew nothing about the science of quantum mechanics or any of that stuff. So we contacted him, told him what was going on, and he got interested, and he came to see us. And we showed him all this evidence. Look, here's this, here's that, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was overwhelming. And so he said, this is a very profound statement. He was talking to me. He says, well, aside from this just being like a chance kind of deal, which it seems to be too much happening for it to be that, he says, what it is you're a receiver. You're tuning into something that's real. And as you tune into it and people start to hang out with you and resonate with you, it becomes like a powerful draw. And then things that are like that are drawn to you, and things that are like the things that you're tuning into will manifest around you. And that is very profound, because it's also now, we know, part and parcel of what can happen when we're working on time travel. What you want to do is you want to create something that is going to act as what you might call in fractal geometry or a chaos math, a strange attractor. And then things that are like what you're trying to do are going to start to happen. And then it gets to a critical point, and then that tuning part that I was talking about happens, and and pow, there you go. It's you've crossed the line. What if you're trying to send somebody somewhere, then that's when that happens. If you're trying to bring something here, that's when that happens. There you go. So Fred Allen Wolf laid it out for us back in 1992. So what has happened since, I've now gotten to the point where I've done experiments, and like you mentioned during the opening show, we've been able to prove scientifically with physical experiments that no one thought would be possible how the parallel universes are real. And the reason why I was able to do it and nobody else did it is because most people, and I don't mean most people, I'm talking about scientists now, they don't know what time is. All right? So since they don't know what time is, and then the problem is they didn't see the connection between it and the parallel universe ideas. All right? And so I was trying to resolve the time paradox in what they call retrocausal experiments, where they can do things with a particle where they change the path that the particle went down after the fact, and they can make it show up someplace else that shouldn't, as if it had gone that way all along. And so they say, oh, we've changed the path of the particle. I'm going, no, because we know what really happened. So you didn't change anything. That's be a paradox, and I don't believe in paradoxes. So I then realized, oh, wait a minute. That's kind of like, the Schrodinger's cat, where you put the cat in a box and then you open it up and you wait a while. You know the story.
Yeah. Cat's
either alive or dead, unless you're using the computer version like I like to do. And the cat's either asleep or awake. So what happens is that I'm thinking, no, instead of changing the path of the particle, we've created a new parallel universe that we're in that has that alternate outcome that would be there if we hadn't done what we did. So that became the method or the practice of what we were trying to do, was to prove that. Can we experimentally prove it? We know that what the experiment looks like already. Can we prove that this is what's going on? And that's what I ended up being able to do, and that's what sold it. That's why I got the double-blind paper published, because in the paper I had photographed the entire parts of the experiment, because we have to film them so you can go back and look frame by frame to see if an anomalous result happens, which is you get a hit in an area where no laser was fired, for example. And so that we were able to show that. And what are you going to do? They can't tell us, oh, you're wrong. They're looking at the photographic evidence in full color, right? So, yeah, that was it. So now parallel universes are connected to the whole time travel thing solidly. The Perimeter Institute, Neil Turok from there, said back in 2018 he thought that was going to be the answer, that somebody was going to come along and connect quantum mechanics as a solution for time travel to the past.
It makes sense.
What happened?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
You wrote a letter to the head of the World Economic Forum. What was that about, and what happened?
Well, basically, oddly enough, what happened was that they had done something that with this article written by Richard Muller about time. Okay, oddly enough. And so what happens is that he had a book out called Now, and he's trying to explain how he thinks time works and all this stuff. And they put it on their website. That's how World Economic Forum got connected to it. So that gave me an opening to then send them a letter. And because what I was looking at was the fact that there was some controversy with the organization, as you well know. And Elon Musk was trying to make a big deal out of it. He was saying, I'm not going to go. I don't think necessarily that it's some conspiratorial thing, but I just think it's going to be boring. And so that's what he stated on Twitter. And then what happens is the event starts to take place, and the media, who wasn't following necessarily every tweet that he did, thought he was going to be there. And then it turns out, no, he's not going to be there. And the organization came out and said, well, we didn't invite him anyway. He hasn't been here since 2015. So that was an egg on his face. That gave me an opening to come in and do something big. And so I wrote the letter to Professor Klaus Schwab, who was the head of the organization. And I used some of the things from my past that I thought he would find interesting, like my letter from David Rockefeller Jr. inviting me to this big arts and education shindig that he had going on at OSU at one point. And I basically was a letter saying, look, you have a controversial reputation there's a lot of people here that don't like you guys. I mean, it's not very good either because, if you go too far, then what will happen is they're going to attack you. They've already done it here in my country because he's in Switzerland. So I'm like, but I think there's things that you're interested in that, we can agree on. And there's alternative ways to approach doing it. And one of them is mine, which is like now using time travel to the past to come up with solutions for things. So it's all in there. It just came out not too long ago. So we'll have to see how it goes. But, I mean, we got a real good rep out of the COP27 thing. And I even mentioned that in that letter. And then also, I wrote a review updating the review of that book, by the way, because it had a lot of things wrong with it. So, and I have a link. I had a link in the letter to that article I did, updating their thing. And that showed them that, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about. And I don't know what their interest at the time was in on time and time travel and all that, but it was there. It was on their website. It was from a few years ago. So
that's pretty impressive.
See how it plays out.
Marshall, how would the time travelers be selected? The first ones, would they be voluntary? What do you think it would be like?
They're customers.
Yeah,
we got people paying to go. Yeah,
they really they would pay to go.
Yeah, we've got 2 or 3 lined up right now. As soon as we get it to work, they're gone.
Can I ask how much they are willing to offer?
Well, essentially, because of the circumstances that happened when we did this, they're kind of like customers, but they're also investors. Okay, they wanted to put money in to make it happen because they wanted to go, and they didn't necessarily pay the same amount, but they also weren't going to the same place either. So they were the ones that kind of kick-started the whole thing off, and they're going to be the first ones out.
Would there be tests of little animals or insects or anything, sending them back and forth?
We're not going to get back into like every little animal, but we're going to do some small objects, and then we're going to do probably some, I don't know, gerbils or something. But see, what you got to understand is we're not dealing with some kind of like super strong force fields or something like that. The process that we're using is what happens every day when parallel universes split off, because decisions that we make and events that take place. So we're not dealing with something that's like an unknown in terms of what effect it might have on your body. It's not going to have any effect on your body, because we're not doing it. We're not using a technology that's like, like any of the cool stuff that you see in science fiction that, it's like they got all this equipment and then, you know what I'm talking about. We're not doing that kind of thing. It's not necessary. That's all based on old science ideas. This is quantum mechanics. It's a whole other ball of wax.
When it happens and we look back, would it seem so simple?
No, it is not. No,
it's
because
not
it's complicated. Because there's more than one way of doing it. And then how do you know which way is going to be the best way? And again, the breakthrough was figuring out that regardless of which way you do it, you still got to deal with that tuning thing, and that's the thing that's really the key. And so, that was the deal.
You sent us a song on YouTube by Todd Rundgren. What's that all about?
Well, the interesting thing about it is, ever George Van Tassel?
Yeah.
All right. There was a recording online for a while, which it's not there anymore. But it had this. It was like this equation that they gave him, and someone had converted it into like a sound or something. And at one point, it sounds exactly like this part of this Todd Rundgren tune that you have, which is called International Feel. Now, remember I talked about the tuning thing?
Mm-hmm.
Well, at the beginning of that song, you hear a tone.
Yes, you do. That's right.
And then it kind of sounds like a drill kind of trying to get started. And then you can imagine it going through whatever it's trying to drill through, and then it breaks through, right? That's analogous to quantum tunneling, all right, which is a quantum physics thing. It doesn't work exactly that way, but it is symbolic of that. Well, the funny thing about it is that tuning pit, the tuning part with the tone, if you have a tuning fork and you hit it, then you get a tone, right? And then from there on, that's the beginning of what's going on with the song. They have a tone before the tuning begins. So the thing about it is that song predicted what the solution was going to be for how we're going to try to do time travel. We knew there were some weird things about that scene for a long time.
That's amazing.
It just came to me the other day. And that beginning it really gets you.
If you had a chance to talk to Albert Einstein and you were telling him your plans for time travel, how impressed would he be?
He wouldn't even know. First of all, he didn't like quantum mechanics, all right? So I used to say, I play in the field where Einstein feared to tread. So it was like, basically, he would have to wrap his mind around the fact that this stuff really does work, and particularly this experiment where he proved that parallel universes are real. Because the solutions to real time travel don't come from relativity theory at all, and he didn't even like the idea. And that's the ironic thing about it. People keep trying to link relativity theory, whether it's general or special, to time travel, and they never find that solutions that they're looking for, particularly for time travel to the past. And it's not meant to. That's not where the answer is. That's not where Einstein's head was even at. And the whole time dilation thing is just an effect of what happens when you do things with strong magnetic fields or gravitational fields or high velocities. But it's not supposed to be trying to accomplish time travel. It's a side effect of what happens if you do those things. It's not a purpose. And that's the big thing about that.
Let's go to the phones now. They're lining up for you, Marsh. Let's go to Diana in Manhattan. Welcome to the program. Hi, Diana.
Hi, love your show.
Thank you.
Things. You're welcome. And by the way, I was born on May 28th, the same day as your mother.
Yeah,
Different
it's
year.
coming up.
Okay. But anyway, three things. First, the Philadelphia experiment in 1943 supposedly sent two sailors into the future and brought them back to 1943. Second, in a book called The Omniverse by Alfred Labremont Weber, which I heard about on your show, he maintains that the government has been using time travel for decades. And third, and I think most important thing, that man who purports to be from 2039, who said that he changed the timeline, which would account for the Mandela effect.
John Teeter.
Why not just, I'm sorry?
John Teeter was his name, I believe, right?
John Teeter?
Yeah.
Well, John Teeter, why not ask him how he did it and just do it the way you did it?
Interesting.
You talking to me?
Talking to you.
Well, first of all, if I got with any of these people that ask the right questions, I find out pretty darn fast that there's a problem with their stories. So, I'm at the end of trying to do this for real because I take it seriously because I don't believe that we have very much time left. And so my life's on the line. I got a gun to my head. It's sort of Damocles, okay? And so I don't have time to mess around with people that have, because here's the thing. You want to talk about the Philadelphia experiment? I used to be rated as the number one researcher in the world on the Philadelphia experiment. I can tell you more stuff about it than you can imagine. But the thing about it is, we don't have time to mess around with that now because we can't do it for real. And not now. It's not going to get us anywhere. It's not going to get us to the time travel part because guess what? I'm sorry, but the time travel part was invented by Al Bielek, and he made it up because I investigated it, and I found out he lied about his background. He misappropriated another guy's father's identity out of Princeton at the archives. Why do I know that? Because I went there, boots on the ground. So the thing about it is I don't sit back and read this stuff and then, oh, wow, this must have happened. It must be true. I went out and investigated it back in the 90s. Okay, so all that stuff is completely worthless. I have to do it for real because I want to live.
What's the timetable, Marshall, on time travel? What's the timetable?
Here's the odd thing about it. The odd thing about it was that I was trying to beat what I call the 11-year prophecy. Long story short, there's this weird thing that happens. It began in 1957. Every 11 years, something significant takes place in my life that moves me toward, and other things toward, the realization of time travel and all that kind of thing. Well, what happens is I was going to try to beat it, and this is back in 2019. But guess what? COVID happened.
Oh, yes.
So that totally screwed everything. Guess what? Now, 2023, it's that date. It's that 11-year. This is the 11th year, and now everything's taken off like crazy. Now, figure that one out. So what we're doing is we're probably going to make it happen this year. We'll either make it happen or we will be right on the verge of it doing it. But, I mean, we're so close now, it's ridiculous. And this is January still. So it's like, you know.
I want you back when you make that announcement.
Well, yeah, we'll send it. We have a whole thing we're putting together how we're going to handle that.
Okay.
But, yeah, you'll know.
Let's go to Jason in Olympia, Washington, west of the Rockies. Hey, Jace, go ahead.
Hey, thank you so much, George, for taking my call, and thank you, Marshall.
Thank you.
I have just a couple questions. Your previous caller, God bless her heart, touched on Al Bielek and the experiment that happened there. The Montauk Project, the Philadelphia experiment in 1943. George had Al Bielek on February 25th, 2005, and it was a very interesting discussion, and it seems almost like with what you're speaking about is really broad strokes. Could you explain a little more clearly on what you're talking about with a little more thorough and more precise dates? And it just seems almost like you're painting broad strokes on.
Let me stop you here as we'll get to the point. Here's the deal. I knew Al Bielek. Did you know Al Bielek personally?
No, I'm sure he didn't.
All right. So here's the deal. I knew Al Bielek. I knew his buddies. Found out about him was around like 92, something like that. I thoroughly investigated the story. I was privy to things that most people aren't privy to. And again, I actually investigated the thing thoroughly. And that, for me to explain about the Philadelphia experiment and what you don't know would be a whole show.
Oh, at
if you
least.
want to talk about that? Have me on for the Philadelphia experiment. We can dedicate the whole show to it.
Well, Marshall, did the experiment occur with the government, or is it something that Bielek is making up?
Oh no! Here again. Here's the story. The experiment was real. I know it happened, but it didn't involve time travel, and they wouldn't even try to make it involve time travel. It was supposed to do.
It was a cloaking thing, wasn't it?
What they were doing. And then we can prove this. I have a document, a letter about the radar part. They were trying to do the radar part, and they were also trying to do optical invisibility because you could see there was variations of how you could get them both at the same time.
They wanted to hide the ships.
Right. And they were trying to cloak them from primarily the German radars because the Germans, I like this Jacques Vallée article that was out there for a while, which I debunked. The Germans did have radar. We found photographs from World War II actually before World War II even, where the Germans had ships with radar on them, like the Graf Spee and a number of other ships like that. So we know the Germans had radar. We also know, and because I talked to people who were on those boats for the Allied, the Merchant Marine and people like that, they were up in the North Sea route. They're called the Murmansk Run, and that's in the William Moore book. Okay, they even mentioned the Murmansk Run.
Yep.
That's where the Germans had their surface vessels, and they had radar. So I mean, I could go into again a whole show on this, because I know more about it than anybody else does, and I did a full investigation on this. And so you could put me up against 100 skeptics, and I could beat them all in a court of law because I have the evidence and I investigated it. Most of the people that just run around spreading, stuff that they heard about, but I had physical evidence, like documents and things like that. It's like I've got a book that I want to put out, but I just hadn't had the time. But all the books, it's like a history book. I've got all these records from the National Research Development, whatever they used to call it, the NDRC, and all kinds of other things. But that's like, if you want to talk about that, that's like a whole other show. Because it doesn't have anything.
Who was the second guy in that? Was Duncan Cameron? Do you recall that name?
I met Duncan. I know these people. Vincent Barber. I can find out who he is. But Preston Nichols. I went to several events with Preston. I got Preston on a TV show locally. I mean, I know these people, and I remember what was happening when the story started to unravel. And the first thing out of Preston's mouth when we were talking initially was, I mentioned Al Bielek to him, and he goes, well, Al Bielek, he embellishes. And I found out later on what they meant. What they meant is that Al Bielek was a pathological liar, and sometimes he just couldn't help but make stuff up. And a classic example of that is when he said he broke from the Montauk story, the main thing that they were talking about always. And he said, we went to the future. And we went as far, I went personally as far as the wing makers. And he didn't know, because he didn't have the internet, the wing makers had already been debunked by the guys. I was like, Citizens for UFO Secrecy, their attorney helped debunk that whole wing maker story. But he didn't know about it because he didn't have the internet. And for some reason, Nexus ran that story again after it had already been debunked on the internet, and that's when Bielek saw it. And he thought, oh, wow, this is something new. I should add it to my story. Even though it's completely against everything he'd been talking about before. And then people were like, what the heck is he doing? And that's why, because he was making it up. And he played everybody. And I'm sorry, those are the facts.
Let's go to Andrew, truck driving in Wisconsin. Welcome to the show. Hi, Andrew.
Hey, George, long-time listener. I appreciate you taking my call.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, it'd be nice if you and Tom could possibly in the future make it up to Minnesota or Wisconsin, like Madison or Minneapolis, one of these days.
Minneapolis could be in the cards.
Hey, that sounds great. So my question is, so let's say that you time travel, you're out in the middle of an open field, and you go into the future, you go into the past, and now there's a building right in that exact spot or a tree right in that exact spot. Do you become infused with that building or tree?
Well, first of all, one of the things you have to do is you have to know where you're going. And so what we would do is, number one, no one wants to go to the future. Okay, let's just get rid of that idea. And it's a hassle to try to do it, because the easiest way to do it is through relativity, but then you're going to need a space program. So, that goes out.
So you're saying everything's going to be the past, whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever we do is going to be in the past. And then you can determine what's going on. For example, when I'm thinking about, we're going 1971. Okay, let me take that for example. So what happens is we find a shopping mall that was made then, and what happens is we figure out, okay, we're going to go to this particular spot in this parking lot, and the reason we go to that spot is because we know they didn't park stuff there, and chances are there's not going to be anything there when we go there, and we go at a particular time when nobody else is around, and so you do your research that way. You don't just take a random, go to an open field. I mean, you can't do much prediction on that, because the same kind of thing you talked about. But you'd have to know. I mean, because you mentioned when they put a building there. Well, you can check for that kind of thing. But those are the kind of things you have to do. I mean, this isn't. I don't know how to explain it. This is serious business. We're not joking around. It's like that song by the Talking Heads, David Byrne. This ain't no party. This ain't no disco. This ain't no fooling around.
Are other countries working on this too, Marshall, in tandem with whatever you folks are doing?
No. As far as we know, they're not, and we've not been approached by another country per se. There's some people in another country that are interested. I haven't done anything about it yet, but they were talking to me. But as far as I know, for certain there isn't another country doing it. They could be. I mean, secret programs happen all the time. I've got a secret program, So that's about the only thing I can say about it.
Marshall, I've got a couple of websites for you. Is there one that you recommend?
There's one that I don't know. Last time I looked at the page he had up, there wasn't on there, and that was about.me and then / Earth 12KB4, which is Earth and then the number 12, written out, and then K and then B and then 4. So Earth, it's called about.me / Earth 12KB4. Go there because there's a lot of other stuff that you can hit off of that one.
And your book's still available?
Yes, absolutely.
Marshall, how long have you been at this? This is amazing work you're doing.
Well, in terms of being serious about actually doing it instead of just researching the subject, I would say probably about 2000, something like that.
20-some years. What got you interested in doing this?
Because I wanted to live. Because I didn't think there was a future. I mean, that's when I got really serious about actually doing it. That was around 2015, and that's when I realized, this is not looking good. And it was basically, hey, it's be prepared to get out of here or face the consequences. So I was serious. I'm not kidding. I mean, people think oh, he's just I don't know that people think, but they don't have the seriousness I have. Okay, I really don't think that this world's going to last, or our civilization's going to last, very much longer. I would give it, let's say, if I want to be cautious, I'd say give it 5 years or less.
Jeez.
Okay, that's why I want to get out of here. I mean, I was trying to get out of here before COVID happened. Then COVID happened, slowed everything down. But we still made progress. So, and now we're at the point where I think we're going to be able to break through and get out of here, or start to this year.
Now, when you say get out of here, you're going back into the past? Are you going to stay there?
Yeah. If this place is going down the toilet, why would I want to come back?
Well, eventually, isn't it going to happen again?
Well, years later, I mean.
Well, how far back are you going to go?
Well, all right, for some people, because people can't decide on going to the same place within the 20th century or whatever. We're saying, like, look, okay, go back 12,000 years, where it's safe, and restart civilization all over again. That's one option. But for other people, they have a specific spot. They had the money to pay for it, and that's where they're going to go. I'm going to help get everything set up so that we can restart that civilization. But then I'm going where I want to go, which is going to be somewhere, like in the 80s or 70s. I'm not gonna stick with the restart.
Yeah, you want running water, right?
Well, I mean, no, but here's the deal: the restart, we're gonna ship over or ship back or whatever how you want to call it, the equipment to set up a modern civilization back then. We're not talking about roughing it. I mean, initially the people that are going to be there are going to be roughing it, but that's going to be setting up, buildings, plumbing, everything. We're going to need people are going to be getting hired to work there. It's going to be crazy.
This is the one thing I've always been fascinated by time travel. How do you know how to get back to a certain time period? How do you do that?
Well, good thing you asked that question. Here's why. I can't tell you. Why? Because that kind of qualifies with trying to set up the telemetry like a missile system or something. Because
right.
That's okay. And the thing is, the science, before you figure out how to actually make it work as actual time travel, you can weaponize it. And that's something we've already done. And that's one reason why the Russians are having such a bad problem in Ukraine, is because back in February of last year, I decided we were going to test this stuff out again, because we've done it before. We're going to test this out on the Russians, because we had different equipment and all that kind of stuff than what we had back in the wake of 9/11. So we did that, and I sent you a copy of what I call the order thing, where you say, that's what we're going to do, and that order was only 5 things that we had on that. And the thing about it was, here it is. I got it right in front of me. Number 1, cause a massive disruption of the convoy heading to Kyiv, which will include explosions and Russian soldiers getting wiped out. 2, deaths of more high-ranking Russian military. 3, failure and crashing of Russian aircraft. 3. 4, increasing failures of Russian military objectives with a loss of equipment, weapons, and personnel. And 5, Putin falling in ill health, sparking rumors that he may die or step down. And all those things happened.
All those things are happening.
Yeah, and that was the date on that was March 1st. And none of those things had really happened like that at that point. But March 3rd, things happened to such an extent, the media for the first time was saying, whoa, this might be a stalemate. Now it's like they're kicking Russia's butt, and we're considering getting involved again with a new setup to try to end the war. But this is why this is no joke, because the approach that we're using to do what you're talking about, like how do you go where you want to go, that's being used as a military option as far as how this stuff works from a military point of view. And that goes back to Bearden. When I was, remember the 8 hours of Bearden? Right, exactly. So that's the roots of that, going back to Bearden. So, this is serious business. This is no joke at all. And that's why I can't tell people exactly how to do the time travel thing, because then they could do this. And then you got total chaos.
Big time. Let's go back to the final calls. Mayat's with us in New York. Hello, Mayat. Welcome.
Yes, good morning. morning, gentlemen. Such an excellent guest. Thank you, Marshall, for your explorations. Very intriguing. And I have, I guess, a brief four-parter. Please note, and I'll listen over the air. First, your thoughts on certain groups of ETs possibly being travelers from the future. I'd like to know whether out-of-body astral projection and other metaphysical spiritual practices might bring some insight into your work. Third, I'd like you to flesh out Diana's question around, for a period of time, a regular Coast guest, John Titor's story and his predictions, including a coming civil war in the U.S., and lastly, your recommendations of authors and books, particularly around time travel or of speculative fiction. I hope you have my questions. George usually does, too. Thank you, George.
Take the first couple, and I've got the second ones written down for you.
All right. Well, let's see. On the alien thing, I don't know, because the aliens aren't really my bag, but we did have an intrusion by somebody from an advanced civilization, not here. I think it was from a parallel universe, where they used a device to cause a screen to kind of appear not in our frequency basically range, because it only showed up for a second. But we were able to show that they were using this thing to observe what was going on. And what was going on was a testing of an idea by Akira Haranov, Israeli physicist, on how to use quantum measurements to try to control a time machine. And this thing shows up. I don't know if you put it on the website or not, George, but you can find it elsewhere. It's sometimes called the face. But basically, it's amazing. If you look at my stuff enough, you'll find it there if it's not on the Coast to Coast website. But at any rate, I don't know what else is going on with aliens. That's not really my bag. As far as astral projection and a lot of that kind of stuff goes, unless something is an objective, I don't get involved with it. And I can't. And if someone's doing the astral projection, they know what's going on, but we can't know. So it's subjective. So I can't really tell you about that.
Are you familiar with
the rest of it, George? Right?
You familiar with the John Titor time travel story?
Yeah, I know all about them, of course. Yeah,
and of course he talks about
the Civil War. You talk about the Civil War thing from
that?
Yeah. Well, sure. The thing is that, and all you have to do is look at what's going on in the country and predict the Civil War. I remember going to a gun show back in I think it was it was before the '98. It was '97, and there was already books about the next Civil War and all that kind of stuff. So that a lot of the Titor projections came out of that culture where there's been a Civil War in the future, and then the Russians got involved, and whatever else the scenario went. But I mean, you could just look at. In fact, this is remember Y2K? Remember that?
Yeah.
Art Bell
2000.
Had a lot of these guests on, and they were talking about the Y2K is going to set everything back, and we're going to have to revert to these different ways of living and all this stuff, and that's where the Titor stuff came out of. So, and besides the fact, the physics about how he was going to try to do it, I know where it came from, and it wouldn't be applicable, or you couldn't do it that way. I mean, he used a lot of lingo stemming from the parallel universe ideas, but he didn't understand the intricacies and inherent nature of how it would actually operate. So it was generalistic. What can I say?
And what about books on time travel? Plus, you're too.
There's not a lot of good ones out there because the people have been relying on Einstein's work too much. Tim Swartz has a good time travel book out there from an anecdotal point of view. Also, I can look for Jenny Randall's stuff. She did some good research on.
Yes,
right. Jenny Randall, that's some good stuff there. And that's basically about time slips and this kind of natural phenomena which need to be investigated more. And so, that I would suggest that stuff for time travel.
All right, next up, let's go to Mark in Ohio. Welcome to the program. Hi, Mark. Go ahead.
Hey, George. It's been a while since I got into you.
Good. Welcome back.
Yeah. Marshall, I got to say, you're one of the most interesting guys that George has ever had. I'm comparing you to Richard C. Hoagland, Michio Kaku. George knows all these. He's had him on several times. And you know Brian Greene, the physicist Brian Greene?
I know who he is. I don't know him personally. But I do know Richard personally.
Right. Yeah, right. You don't play golf with him.
No.
Anyway, Greene is a heck of a. He got his PhD at Oxford, didn't he, George?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, particle physicist, right? I think, George.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Greene came out with an elegant universe, Marshall.
Right, I know all about it.
You know, he put it on DVD about
we're talking. Look, Greene, Stephen Hawking, all those kind of guys. That's my peer group. I have to compare what I'm working on versus what they're doing, and how it has to shake out and be accurate. So, and then sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't. But
sure.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, you're a brilliant guy. I want to compliment you too. Again, you should have been a lecturer at a university. I would have loved to have sat in one of your classes. But my degree is in biology, not physics. I wish it was in physics rather than bio. Maybe I should have made it. But anyway, Marshall, and this article was in Scientific American magazine. I've kept these all over the years, out of 2010, and it says this time really exists. You know, back then the physicists weren't sure. Well, maybe some of them aren't anyway. Now I weren't sure of time. Yeah, it may come out of our conscious mind or subconscious, but this last paragraph down the lower right-hand side of the page says, according to some physicists, time may arise from the way that the universe is partitioned. And that sounds like what you said before about an hour ago. A succession of parallel universes, you know.
No, that's not. Let me correct you. Number one, what they're talking about is not the same thing as a parallel universe idea. And number two, the theory, I don't know the complete thing what they're talking about, but it's very simple. My thing is based on stems off of relativity theory, where we take it literally, and the purpose of time is to allow things to happen. Space is where they happen. If you don't have time, nothing can happen. Time is not emergent. Time is fundamental. Carlo Rovelli, whatever his name is, I mean, he runs around. He talks out of both sides of his head. I mean, look, it's very simple. You know, it's not. They're trying to make it really difficult. I don't know why they can't wrap their minds around it, but that's just the way it works. And in the end, I think we'll discover that time is actually literally a part of space, but it's just this functions differently. So, you know, but the thing is, it's real. It's physical. It's real. And that's it.
How many people you bringing with you, Marshall?
I don't know yet because we got some time yet. We're still raising money. We're selling art to fund it. And then we'll probably have some people that want to, you know, help make things happen in another way. But, you know, eventually it could be a lot of people depending on how much time you've got. And it depends on how many people want to get involved. But, I mean, it's like hundreds, thousands.
But you're committed to this project.
Yeah, I'm committed to getting it off the ground and letting it function. I had a meeting today with somebody that I want to talk to you about taking it over, so I don't have to be saddled with it. But the thing about it is, yeah, we're serious. Here's the deal. We're serious because we don't want to die. I mean, you can't get any more. Remember this. Think of this. Okay, it's it's not even February. It's like January 31st, and you're in Ukraine, okay? And you think everything is going to be going well. And there's all kinds of rumors about maybe Russians might do something, but they're not really going to invade. That's just Putin talking, right? And then you go.
And look what happened. Marshall, thanks again for being on the program. Always good talking to you. If you want to listen to our show ad-free, 24/7, access audio archives, live chat with me, and much more, you need to become a Coast Insider now.
So you're telling me your grandmother, who died a few weeks ago, came and visited you last night in your bedroom, and you're not scared?
Are extraterrestrials living among us?
I don't know if it's true or not, folks, but we're going to find out.
If you enjoy stories like these and want to learn more about the mysteries of the universe with me, become a Coast Insider now to access hundreds of our archive shows to listen anytime, anywhere. Sign up now at coasttocoastam.com/Coast Insider. That's coasttocoastam.com/Coast Insider.